Tonight, I'm going to give you some new information for most people. I'm also going to try and get you emotionally involved, and maybe if it works, a tear in one or two eyes. And thirdly, I'm going to try and excite you about a challenge we've got as a society to do something radical that will change people's lives. I believe, as Fred said in the introduction, that we use prison as very expensive board and lodgings for a lot of people that should not be there. Mainly young males who can be troubled, traumatized, damaged people and who have got significant drugs, alcohol and mental health issues. But I also believe there are lots of good, credible, meaningful alternatives out there that do address those problems for people, help them become positive citizens, and give us as taxpayers much better value for money. So let me start with some of the facts. Did you know that since the 1990s, the number of people that we lock up in the UK has doubled? That's the graph that's going up. But the other one that's going down is the number of crimes. Crimes have been dramatically falling. And in fact, crimes of violence have been falling more than any other crimes. They have halved since 2002. Is that the same situation in other countries of the world? Scotland is the dark red graph, and this is a comparison with the rest of Europe. If I was to show you the top of the World League on the number of people they lock up per 100,000 of their population, it would be far the USA. And you know the issue there, the numbers are largely young black people. But in Europe, which is a more fair comparison with Scotland and the UK, we're not top of the league, but we're close to it. We're double what I thought would be a reasonable comparison. We're double the numbers that Germany and Holland lock up. We're 3 times the best countries, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Japan. I know Japan's not in Europe, but I just thought you'd like to know. So let's start to think about who is in prison tonight, who will be spending tonight in prison in Scotland. Now, I think most of us would agree that people do commit very serious offences, and we believe, as a society, they should be punished by imprisonment. Or that they will be a risk, they are a danger to themselves, their families, their communities. So there are people that should be in prison, but they only make up about 1/3 of the prison population. The other 2/3, largely made up by young men on very short sentences, less than a year, or held on remand until they appear in court. Of those young men, around 60% were unemployed before they went in. Most of them come from the poorer communities. About 70% have got very poor educational backgrounds, so their literacy and numeracy levels are equivalent to an 11-year-old. 50% of them have been in prison at least 3 times before. 20% of them have been in prison at least 10 times before. Let's look at what happens in prison and what those young men are like when they come out. And what do we assume prison should be doing for that group of people? Firstly, I would expect you would agree that they should challenge their antisocial behaviour, think about what they were doing, and stop it. Stop offending, and hopefully become positive members of society. Well, that doesn't work. 60% are reconvicted within 2 years. Maybe we think that while they're in prison, they could learn a new skill, and that would help them get into a job. Well, coming out of prison, 95% of people are unemployed and don't have a job to go to. 35% are when they come out, are homeless. And you know, and I know, you can't hold down a job if you've not got somewhere to stay. So that's not worked either. And actually, I think the training in prisons hasn't kept up with the modern labour market. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the IT training in prison is pretty limited, and you can't get internet access. And we all know almost every job, searching for a job, or even applying for benefit, has to be done online. So not only are we not skilling people, we're actually de-skilling them when they're in prison if we're taking away their ability to keep up with technology and IT. And prison has actually become quite an easy option for a lot of people. It's comfortable compared to what these young men are often, their lifestyles are like. You get regular meals, you get a sleep, you can get detoxed, you get fit, but you get told what to do and when to do it. So all your decision making is taken away from you. So you're not preparing, and we're talking about damaged young men who have got potential, or have had alcohol and drugs problems and maybe mental health issues. They're not being prepared to live a fulfilling life when they come out. Is it a cheap option? Do you think prison's a cheap option? Before I came out, I checked if we could get some of you booked into the 5-star Glen Eagles Hotel just up the road. And a night there in one of their luxury rooms with a view cost much less than a night in a prison in Scotland. And you have to take into account, it's not just the cost of the prison, it's the cost of the whole system that gets you into prison. So the court system, the lawyers, the social workers, and everybody else that's involved. And that costs approximately £85,000 a year to keep somebody in prison. So those mainly young men I was talking about, if we want to change their lives, it'd be cheaper to send them to Eton than have them in prison for a year. Have I made my point? I don't think prisons are working for a group of people that we lock up in them. So let's look at what does work and where there really are alternatives. And I want to talk about what the WISE Group does in a peer mentoring program. I joined the WISE Group 10 years ago. The WISE Group's a social enterprise based in Glasgow that does a range of things, but largely tries to get long-term unemployed people into the labour market. And I realised a few things early on when I joined the WISE Group. First thing I realised was that if you've got an application form for a job, and there's a bit in it that says, tick this box if you've got a criminal record, if you tick that box, most employers, almost every employer, instantly puts that application in the file that says, no thanks. There are very few employers that think, I wonder if I could give that person a chance. I wonder if that person's got talent that would make them an asset to my business or my organisation. And the other thing happened to me in my first week in the WISE Group was that I met a group of people that had just started working with us as what we were calling life coaches. Now we would call a mentor, and they're trained as mentors. And we were starting a project to support the young men I've been talking about coming out of prison, in the prison initially, at the prison gate, and into the community, to work with them, to challenge their behaviours, help to get them skilled and into work if we could. And in my first week in the WISE Group, now at my age, I thought was probably in my last job. I met a guy, his name's Alan, and he said to me, this is my first proper job, and he was 43. And I found out more about Alan, and actually Alan had spent 25 years living a lifestyle that we would call chaotic: drink, drugs, violence, and in and out of prison. And we'd employed him and another group of people deliberately because we thought, if you can change your life, you can influence others, and you would be a role model, and you're believable to people that you're going to be working with. This advert went in the Daily Record, and it says at the bottom, if you've had a previous conviction or spent time in prison, and you think you could put that experience to good use, contact the WISE Group. We're recruiting mentors. We got 3,000 inquiries, 1,200 applications. We talked to 150 people, and we eventually were able to employ a team of 10 people. One of those 10 was a guy called Charlie. Charlie I was looking for that advert. I knew we'd put it in, I saw it at the time, but we didn't keep a copy in the HR file. And I quote it a lot. I'd never found a copy of it. And somebody said to me, Charlie carries a copy in his wallet. So I contacted Charlie this week and I said, have you got a copy of the advert? And he did. So it's there tonight. I'm really pleased I found it. But why do you think Charlie carried it with him? Charlie was a long-term prisoner. He was a drug dealer. And this was the first time he felt he got a chance to do something about that experience positively to stop others going down the track he went down. He still carries it with him. So let me tell you a bit about our mentoring scheme. It's aimed at the young men I've been talking about. And I don't know if you'll know this, but when you come out of prison, unless you have a sentence of 4 years in Scotland, it's not the same in south of the border in England and Wales, you get no support whatsoever from social services. So you're left at the prison gate with £72, and that's to do you anywhere between 2 and 5 weeks until you get a benefit sorted out, because 95% are not going to a job, as you will remember. £72 for nearly 5 weeks. You get 7 days of your prescription, and you're just basically left to fend for yourself. And you'll recall that we are in a position where 35% are homeless. They've got to find somewhere to stay that night. So, that's not ideal. Our programme works with people for 6 months before they come out of prison on a voluntary basis, and we're dealing with about now currently 1,000 people across Scotland every year. And the kinds of things we're doing are coming up on these slides. The percentage that we support on the practical things, sorting out housing, sorting out benefits, sorting out health. That's what we do first. But really we'd like to get people into training and work, because the best way of stopping the cycle of reoffending is a payslip, is somebody working. We also help integrate with their families and, as I say, try and get people into work. Now, if you're not engaged with this argument emotionally and you don't think that's a good thing to do for troubled young, largely men, 90-odd% are men, but there are some females, then believe me, this is saving money. As opposed to the £85,000 a year for a year in prison, the cost of our mentoring service is about £2,000 a year. And we're employing people like Alan and Charlie. I'm going to tell you, just finish off with a bit more about Alan and Charlie, and then I'm going to give you 5 challenges for us as a society. So Alan's been working with us now for 10 years, and Charlie for 8 years. Charlie's now a manager. He's been promoted. He's the senior guy in this team. And Alan is working away, and I think, I was talking to him recently, we've worked out he's probably had 500 customers during that time. I don't know what his success rate is. I wish we had a wee video camera in his shoulder all the time he was working to find out. But let's say it's 50%. Think of the impact that's had on the number of lives, the number of families, the number of mums and dads that couldn't sleep at night because their kids were in difficulty. And also just how much he personally has saved for you, the taxpayers. Alan was, by another organisation, nominated for a UK-wide award recently. So this is him 3 weeks ago. And I think he's probably given the Princess Anne a racing tip. He's quite good at that as well, actually. But just to prove that people can change, he's a brilliant example. My 5 challenges. If we believe that we can do this, other countries have done it. Holland is starting to build real community alternatives and closed prisons. They've closed half the prisons in Holland. There's no corresponding increase in the crime rate. My first challenge is to governments. Governments, both in Scotland and the UK, have made great announcements about prison reform and changing the justice system, but they need all our support to put that into practice and implement it. It's a big challenge because they've got to shift the funding from prisons to community alternatives. We know what works from evidence. We know what doesn't work from evidence. If you build a prison, you put people in it. So let's stop doing it. Secondly, my challenge is to build better community alternatives I think they should be more tuned to skills, qualifications, and get people into work. And that way, the courts will trust them better and put people into them. They're not at the moment, actually. They're not increasing the rate that prisons are. Thirdly and fourthly, two system changes that could easily, I think, be done. The prison service working with housing providers to make sure nobody leaves prison homeless. It's crazy. Fourth, prison working with the health services, because 40% of people leave prison without a GP and 7 days of their prescription. You need a GP to give you a prescription. So that could be done before you leave prison. And finally, to employers. Give people a chance based on the person and not their history. And that's employers in the public and private sector. This is one of the best examples in the UK. Timson's do it. The Wise Group does it. Lots more people could do it. Thank you very much.